I'm now going to cover the topic of how to successfully mount a T and K bracket onto a wall, okay? So I have in front of me here 3 different types. We have basically a 12-inch T and K here, this being the T bracket, this being the K. We have an 18-inch set, which you can see here, and then we have a 24-inch set, which you can see here. So for the ease of doing this job, I'm actually going to just use a 12-inch set, but it's the same basic principle in all cases, okay? So with the smaller bracket here, it's normal enough to use something like these plugs and these coach screws here to actually bolt these into position. Now if you want to be cautious, or if there's a heavy load, or if you're using the larger brackets, you can be better off to go and use some of these anchor bolts, okay? Now for actually fixing the pole that you want to mount off of this onto the brackets here, with the smaller brackets it's normal to use these smaller U-bolts here that we have. But for the larger ones, because the hole spacing can be bigger on it, it's normal to use these 50mm or 2-inch brackets, which we can see here. Okay, just to hold them side by side, you can see the general difference in size. Okay, so what I'm going to do is start off, and a certain amount of this is going to be fake because we don't want to. I don't want to do a lot of drilling during this because it adds noise and time, but not actual any intellectual benefit to the watcher. So the first thing here is, with T and Ks, people often ask, which will you put in the top, the T or the K? And definitely, from my attempts to ascertain this over the year, it'll all depend on who you ask. So generally what I'll do is, I'll either use 2 Ks, or if I'm using a T and K set like this, I'll actually come along and I'll put the T on the top, right? So what we want to do is a few things. We want to make sure that it's square, and we want to, in terms of for the actual bracket of the thing, and then the 2 brackets are properly lined up, so when we put the pole on afterwards, that it won't be mounted crooked or at an angle, right? So the first thing I generally do is, for these plugs here, we need a 10mm hole drilled. Now we can just about fit a 10mm drill bit through here, but I don't particularly like doing this because what can actually happen then is that it'll actually catch on it and sort of twist the bracket on you. So what we often do is I take something like this 6mm drill bit that I'm holding in my hand now, and I use this to drill a series of guide holes. So what I do is, I have a good heavy duty drill bit here, and I'll come along and I'll simply hold up my T bracket like this. I line it up and we can see there's slots in it. And what I'll do is, I'll drill a hole here, and another one over here. And then, once I have the marker holes on it, I'll take down this bracket, I'll change from the 6mm guide holes onto the 10mm, okay? Now the reason that I don't come along and at this point drill the bottom holes is that it'd be difficult to drill these holes in an order that would be perfectly square with the top ones if the top bracket isn't yet in position. So what I do then is, I simply come along and I drill out these 2 holes here, and I've already inserted 2 plastic plugs, one here and one here, and I simply push them in with my finger like that, okay? You can see them there, and I'll come along and I'm going to grab these coach screws now. So I'll grab one each side and I'll just bolt it in here, another bolt over here, and what we'll do is I'll just tighten them in here. So I'll just do this tightening exercise. I'll repeat the same process over here. So that's it. So now we have this top bracket mounted here, and what we could do if we wanted to actually that point is, we can actually come along and just put the first U-bolt in. Just sort of handle this in this point for demonstration purposes. So we just slot it through like this. Bolt through. So you have the first one. So what we're going to do then with the next one is, what we could do is, we want to hold this up in such a manner, like here, where it's square, and then if we drop a pole into position down below, that it will be quite square with it, okay? So what we'll do then is, if I come along and I grab this pole here, and I slotted it down, that would work quite square, rather than be off at an angle like this, okay? So that's a critical thing to us. So, you can use this simply by judging your eye, okay? And you can line them up quite well like that, hopefully. And top and bottom. And what we'll do here is, exactly as I did before, I've used guide holes. Drill here, here, and here. Take down the bracket, change out to a 10mm drill bit, and drill these 3 holes here. And what I'll do in this case is I'm actually going to push by hand in these 2 plugs. So I'll push in this plug here, and I'll push in this plug here as well. Okay, so now we'll come along, we'll actually push this bracket into position. Now as you can see, this is an entirely fake wall I'm doing all this work on, which makes it a little bit difficult, and actually my brackets are moving a tiny bit on me, but you get the general basic idea. So what I'll do here now again is I'll just repeat the process, and I'll tighten the brackets in. So for this one here, the top 2 ones will be key in terms of support. So I'll just drive these in. So if we had a very long pole, we might make a decision here at this point that we will mount the second K bracket, instead of quite close here like this, down at a much further point down, and that will actually give more leverage on it. The disadvantage in that is that if we have a relatively short pole, then we'll find out that most of the distance of the pole is actually more or less wasted in between the 2 brackets. So it'll depend, we'll say, on the overall length of the pole, and also of course the weight what we're trying to mount on it. So we'll just repeat this process, move that around. I'm just going to try to straighten back out the bracket I drilled here originally, so we have a totally square. So what we'll do here at this point is, I'll come along and I'll put on the next U-bolt here. So we slot this through like this. This hole. So what we'll do then is, we'll simply slap this pole down through, and we can see that we've achieved our aim here. We have it relatively square, and what we'll do then is we'll simply use initially our fingers and then the actual ratchet here, and we'll tighten this into position, and that'll lock the pole in. Now obviously if we're using this for mounting an aerial or something like this, what we would already have done at this point, if at all possible, is we would have mounted the TV aerial and actually have the cable running down, and that means that once the pole is moved into position like this, it's already fully pre-assembled, and if we needed to adjust, we'll say the aerial direction, we'd simply just adjust the pole like that. So that's it anyway, an overview of how you'd mount a T and K bracket on a wall.